Hey, Algebra 2, we're going to simplify some rational expressions today. We're going to start off with some easy review ones. So hopefully you remember that numbers divide and variables subtract. So on this one, I'm going to pair up my 24 and 3. So 24 divided by 3 is 8. When I do this, I have a division bar here. I tend to put the division bar here because the big numbers on top, the answer in this case needs to stay on top. But that is not always the case. If the big number's on bottom, then the answer is going to stay on bottom. So I'm going to match up my x's. I have x to the second divided by x to the first. So that has an invisible exponent of 1. So I'm going to go 2 minus 1. And then variables subtract. And I take big minus little. So the big numbers on bottom, when I subtract 3, that means my answer is going to stay on bottom. So 2 minus 1 is 1. So I have 1x on top. And 5 minus 3 is 2. Bigger exponent was on bottom. Answer stays on bottom. You only positive exponents. And each variable shows up in your answer only once. So we do not want to see an x on both top and bottom. We're going to simplify now some quadratics. The key here is that you cancel factors, not terms. So like x minus 6 is a factor. We can cancel, if there's an x minus 6 on top, we could cancel that. But this x squared and this x squared, those are terms. You cannot cancel them. So the name of the game here is factor and cancel. So I'm going to start off with this trinomial, x squared plus 4x plus 3. So I make my ACB chart. I need factors of 3 that add to 4, which are just 3 and 1. So this factors x plus 3, x plus 1. So this is really how I tend to do it. I factor everything off to the side, and then I'm going to go substitute it in a minute. This bottom one, x squared minus 9, that's another one that can be factored down. X squared minus 9 is the difference of squares. So do you remember us taking the square root of each term? Square root of x squared is x. Square root of 9 is 3. And so that factors as x plus 3 and then x minus 3. So now we're just going to go and we're going to put our factors in. So I'm rewriting my 5x. I'm going to replace that with x plus 3, x plus 1. And then on bottom, I need to rewrite my x minus 6. I didn't do anything with it. And then x squared minus 9 gets replaced with x plus 3 and x minus 3. Now, once I factored, I can cancel my factors. So this x plus 3 on top cancels the x plus 3 on bottom. And it looks like that is the only thing that cancels out on the top and bottom. And then I'm just going to rewrite it. 5x times x plus 1 over x minus 6, x minus 3. If you don't have any of the same terms on the top and bottom, you can't do anything else, so then we're just done. Number 3. So number 3, I have ab squared minus 5ab. You always have to remember that some terms just have a GCF. So in this case, there is an A and a B in both of them. So I'm factoring out an AB. And when I do that, A divided by A cancels. B squared divided by B equals B. And then divide the other one. So the AB's cancel out, and I'm just left with that minus 5. So let's rewrite this as AB times B minus 5. So here's the other thing that I'm going to do. It looks like I have some similarities going on here, but if you notice, the B comes first in this part, and the number comes first in the denominators. So I'm going to switch the denominators around, and I'm going to write this as B plus 5, and then that would be negative B plus 5. So this B minus 5 and this negative B plus 5, they're super close, but the negative is on the opposite term. And so let's take care of that. You can factor out a negative. And I'm going to do it on the bottom one, the negative B plus 5. I'm going to factor a negative 1 out of that. So that negative divided by negative is positive B. 5 divided by negative 1 would be negative 5. So I'm going to just rewrite this for now. So there's my negative 1 that's out in front, and my B minus 5. Now my factors match up perfectly, and so now I can cancel out my B minus 5 terms. So then my final answer is AB over, I'd probably pull that negative out in front, negative parenthesis B plus 5. In this section, it would be the norm to just leave everything in its factored state. I would never distribute that. If you wanted to put a negative 1 there instead of a negative, that's okay too. Either one works. Next section, now we're going to multiply rational expressions. So you need to know and remember that when you multiply, you're going to add your exponents. And then when you divide, you're going to subtract your exponents. So the first thing I would do is I would group my like terms together. So I'm going to rewrite the numerator. So I'd rewrite this as 12 times 14. And then I do tend to cross them off because I'm afraid I'm going to do something twice. I have this a to the first times that a to the second. So we're multiplying straight across. So when I multiply variables, I add exponents. So that's where I get a to the third. All right, so I use my a's, they're gone. And then I'm going to go in alphabetical order. I'm going to do the b next. C's. So I have c to the third. There's an invisible 1 on that exponent. So c to the third times c to the first is c to the fourth. And then bring over my d to the second. And then on the bottom, I have, that's a 21, times my 8, and then multiply your variables. So a times a to the third, add those, you get a to the fourth. I just have that 1b there. I just have that 1c and that d. Let's see, you do need to know that numbers divide as normal. You could multiply and reduce that, but I think the number gets a little big. So I just tend to reduce like this. So 12 and 21, I recognize that there's a 3 in common. So when I divide a 3 out of that, I get 4. You divide a 3 out of 21, I get 7. Okay, let's keep going. 7 goes into 14 two times, so I would cancel out the 7 and the 14 and make that a 2. No, I guess everything is going to cancel. Okay, so 4 times 2 is 8, and there's an 8 on bottom. So it looks like actually all of my coefficients ended up canceling out. I like how I stacked the variables on top of each other, so then I feel like they're more organized. So A's, subtract them. So I'm going to go 4 minus 3. B divided by B, they completely cancel each other out. The C's, the bigger exponents on top, so I'm going to go 4 minus 2. And that D on bottom, it has an invisible exponent of 1. And so on top, I get D minus 1. So when I clean this all up, I have, okay, so I have C on top. 4 minus 2 is 2. So I have C squared on top. 2 minus 1 is 1. So I have a D on top. And then on bottom, 4 minus 3 is 1. So that's how I fully simplify that. I'm going to go ahead and stop this before I move to the back side.